What happens when a global superstar accidentally discovers a secret she was never supposed to see, and realizes the story she helped build isn't what she thought it was? The studio lights glow softly, casting a warm, almost deceptive calm across the stage of The Tonight Show. The audience laughs at something Jimmy says, the usual rhythm of late-night television moving like clockwork. But sitting across from him, there's something different in her expression tonight. A flicker. A tension. Something unspoken. Millie leans back slightly in her chair, her fingers intertwined, her smile just a little too tight. Before we go any further, if you love deep, dramatic stories that pull you inside the moment, hit subscribe to The Truth Narrator right now. Like, comment, and tell me what you think as this story unfolds, because this one gets intense. Jimmy notices it too. He tilts his head, curious, sensing there's more beneath the surface. So, he says casually, tapping his cue card, I heard you may have accidentally found something you weren't supposed to? The audience chuckles lightly. It sounds like a joke. It feels like a joke. But Millie doesn't laugh. There's a pause. A real one. She exhales slowly, her eyes drifting away from Jimmy for just a second, like she's replaying something in her mind. Yeah, she says quietly. I did. The room shifts. It's subtle, but it's there. The laughter fades quicker than usual. Even Jimmy leans forward now, sensing the weight behind her tone. You know, she continues, her voice steadier now but layered with something deeper, when you're part of something like Stranger Things, you think you know everything. You think you're in control of the story. Her lips press together briefly. But you're not. The audience goes silent. Jimmy raises his eyebrows, intrigued. Wait, what do you mean? Millie lets out a small, almost disbelieving laugh. Okay, so I wasn't supposed to be there. Now the audience leans in. I snuck into the writer's room. A ripple of surprise spreads across the crowd, gasps, whispers, a few scattered laugh. Jimmy grins, playing along. Of course you did. That sounds about right. But again, she doesn't fully laugh with him. I just wanted to see, she says. You know? I've been playing 11 for years. I thought, maybe I deserve a little peek. Her eyes narrow slightly, like she's reliving the exact moment. And then I saw it. Jimmy shifts in his seat. Saw what? Millie's voice drops just a little. A board. Full of storylines. Arcs. Twists. She pauses. And one of them wasn't what I expected. The air tightens. Jimmy's smile fades into curiosity. Okay, now I'm nervous. So was I, she says quickly. Because it wasn't just a small detail. It wasn't like, oh, this character goes here or this happens next. She leans forward now, her voice more intense. It changed everything. The audience is completely still. What do you mean everything? Jimmy asks. Millie hesitates. You can see it, the internal conflict. The line between what she can say and what she wants to say. I saw what happens with Will, she says finally. A wave of murmurs moves through the crowd. Jimmy's eyes widen slightly. Wait, like big stuff? She nods slowly. Powers, she says. The word lands heavy. Will has powers. The audience erupts, gasps shocked laughter, hands flying to mouths. Jimmy leans back, stunned. No way. Yes way, she says, but there's no excitement in her voice. Only tension. And I wasn't supposed to know. There's something about the way she says it. It's not playful anymore. It's real. Jimmy studies her now. So, you found out before everyone else? She nods again. And how did that make you feel? There's a long pause. Millie looks down at her hands. Honestly, she says. Jimmy leans in. Yeah. I was upset. The word hangs in the air. The audience quiets instantly. Upset? Jimmy repeats, softer now. Yeah, she says, her voice cracking just slightly. Because 11, she's always been, you know. She struggles to find the words. The one. Jimmy nods slowly, understanding dawning on his face. And suddenly, she continues, It felt like that was changing. There it is. The conflict. Not just a storyline twist, but something personal. The audience can feel it now. This isn't just behind-the-scenes gossip. This is something deeper. Jimmy speaks carefully. Did you talk to anyone about it? Millie laughs softly, shaking her head. No, she says. I couldn't. Because I wasn't even supposed to know. She looks back at him, her eyes sharper now. So I just sat with it. The camera zooms slightly closer. And the more I thought about it, she continues, the more it bothered me. Jimmy tilts his head. Why? Because it felt like something was being taken away, she says. There's a murmur in the audience again. And I know that sounds selfish, she adds quickly. But when you've lived a character for so long, when you've given so much to them. Her voice softens. You feel protective. Jimmy nods slowly. Of course. She exhales deeply, like she's finally letting something out. And then I started wondering, she says. Jimmy leans forward again. What? What else I didn't know? Silence. A deep, heavy silence. The kind that lingers. Because now it's not just about one spoiler. It's about trust. It's about control. It's about what happens behind the scenes of something millions of people think they understand. Jimmy sits back, processing. That's intense, he says quietly. Millie nods. Yeah, she whispers. The audience doesn't clap. They don't laugh. They just sit there, absorbing it. Because for the first time, this doesn't feel like a fun late-night interview. It feels like something real just slipped through the cracks. And as the camera slowly pans across the stage, the lights, the set, the audience frozen in thought, you can almost feel it. This wasn't just a story about a spoiler. This was the beginning of something much bigger. The applause finally comes, but it's hesitant, almost unsure, like the audience doesn't quite know how to react to what they've just heard. The energy in the room has shifted completely. What started as a light, playful late-night moment has turned into something heavier, something real. Jimmy clears his throat, trying to gently steer the conversation forward, but even he looks slightly thrown off. Wow, he says, letting out a small breath. That's actually a lot deeper than I expected. Millie gives a faint smile, but it doesn't fully reach her eyes. Yeah, she says quietly. It was. There's a pause again, and this time it stretches just a little longer than comfortable. The kind of silence that makes everyone in the room hyper-aware of what's coming next. Jimmy glances down at his card, then back at her. So, when you saw that, when you realized Will had powers, what was your first reaction? Like, in that exact moment. Millie leans back slightly, her gaze drifting off as if she's stepping back into that memory. I remember just standing there, she says slowly. Like, completely frozen. Her fingers tap lightly against her knee, an unconscious rhythm. I thought maybe I was reading it wrong, she continues. Like, maybe it was a joke, or a draft, or something that wouldn't actually happen. She lets out a small, breathy laugh. But it wasn't. The audience listens closely, hanging on every word. And then, she adds, her tone tightening, I kept reading. Jimmy raises an eyebrow. Oh no. A few people in the audience chuckle nervously. Yeah, Millie says. Oh no is right. She shifts forward again, her voice gaining intensity. Because it wasn't just that Will had powers, she says. It was how it was written. The way it was building, the way his character was evolving. She shakes her head slightly. It felt like everything was leading to him becoming central. The word lands with weight. Jimmy leans in. Central, like the main focus? Millie nods slowly. And that's when it hit me, she says. This isn't just a twist. This is a shift. The audience murmurs again, the tension growing. Jimmy studies her face. And that's what upset you? She exhales sharply. It wasn't just that, she says. It was what it meant. What did it mean to you? He asks, softer now. Millie pauses. For a moment it looks like she might hold back, but then she doesn't. It meant that 11 might not be the center anymore. There it is. The raw truth. The audience reacts immediately. Gasps, whispers, a ripple of shock moving through the room. Jimmy quickly lifts a hand, half smiling, trying to balance the moment. Okay, but that's just the story evolving, right? I mean, shows grow, characters change. I know, she interrupts gently, but firmly. I know that, she repeats, her voice steady but emotional. And logically, I understand it. She places a hand lightly on her chest. But emotionally, she says. A small shake of her head. It felt different. The room goes quiet again. Because, she continues, for years, 11 wasn't just a character to me. She was everything. Her voice softens, almost fragile now. She was my childhood. My identity. My responsibility. Jimmy's expression shifts. Less host, more human now. And suddenly, it felt like that was slipping. The words hang in the air. The audience isn't just watching anymore. They're feeling it. Jimmy leans forward, his voice calm. Did you feel replaced? The question lands carefully, but it still hits hard. Millie looks at him. For a second, she doesn't answer. Then she gives a small nod. Yeah, she says quietly. A little. The honesty of it sends a wave through the audience. No laughter now. No applause. Just silence. Jimmy exhales slowly. That's really honest. She shrugs slightly, a faint, bittersweet smile forming. I didn't expect to feel that way, she admits. I thought I'd just be excited. You know? Like, oh cool, new storyline, new powers, this is great. She shakes her head again. But instead, I walked out of that room feeling weird. Weird how? Jimmy asked. Like I didn't belong there, she says. The words hit deeper than anything she's said so far. Even Jimmy looks momentarily speechless. And the worst part, she continues. I couldn't even talk about it. The audience leans in even more. Because if I told anyone, I'd have to admit I wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. Jimmy lets out a quiet wow. So you just carried it? He asks. She nods. For weeks, she says. Maybe longer. Her eyes flicker, like she's replaying conversations that never happened. I'd go to set, see everyone act normal, she says. But in my head I'm thinking, you have no idea what's coming. The tension builds again. And every time I looked at him, she adds. Jimmy tilts his head. At will, she says. Another ripple through the audience. I kept thinking, you're about to change everything. Jimmy leans back, absorbing it all. That must have been intense, he says. It was confusing, she replies quickly. Because I love the cast. I love the story. I want it to be amazing. She pauses. But I also had to deal with my own feelings about it. Jimmy nods slowly. And did that ever affect how you acted on set? He asked. Millie hesitates. Just for a second. But it's enough. Jimmy notices immediately. Oh, it did, didn't it? A few nervous laughs from the audience. She sighs, then gives a small, reluctant smile. Maybe a little, she admits. The crowd reacts, curious, intrigued. In what way? Jimmy presses gently. She looks down, then back up. There were moments, she says slowly, where I felt disconnected. The word lingers. Like I was there, but not fully there, she explains. Because part of me was still stuck on what I saw. Jimmy watches her closely. And I started questioning things, she adds. Like what? He asks. Like, where is this going? What's happening to my character? Why didn't I know this sooner? Each question lands heavier than the last. And that's when it started to turn into something else, she says. Jimmy raises an eyebrow. Something else. Millie nods, her expression tightening. Frustration, she says. The audience murmurs again. Because it wasn't just about the story anymore, she continues. It was about feeling out of the loop. Jimmy exhales slowly. Even as the lead? He asks. She gives a small, almost ironic smile. Especially as the lead. That line hits hard. The audience reacts instantly. Gasps, whispers, a few stunned whoa-s echoing through the room. Jimmy leans back, visibly surprised. "Okay's that's," he starts, then stops, searching for the right words. "That's a big deal." Millie nods. "Yeah," she says quietly. And in that moment you can feel it again, that shift. This isn't just a behind-the-scenes story anymore. This is something deeper. Something complicated. Something that's only just beginning to unravel. Jimmy leans back in his chair, the weight of everything she's said settling over the room like a quiet storm. The audience is no longer just entertained, they're invested, locked into every word, every pause, every shift in her expression. For a moment, he doesn't speak. He just studies her. "You know," he finally says, his voice softer now, more careful, "most people watching this, they see the final product. The show, the characters, the story. They don't see this part." Millie nods slowly. "Exactly," she says. "They don't see what it feels like behind it." There's a pause, and then Jimmy leans forward again, resting his elbows lightly on the desk. "So what happened next?" he asks. "You're sitting with this secret, you're feeling all of this frustration, confusion. Did you ever confront anyone?" The question hangs there. The audience leans in. Millie exhales deeply, her fingers tightening together. "I didn't plan to," she says. "I really didn't." A faint, almost ironic smile crosses her face. "But one day it just came out." Jimmy's eyebrows lift. "Oh, this is where it gets interesting." A few quiet laughs ripple through the audience, but they fade quickly as Millie continues. "It was on set," she says. "We were filming a scene, nothing major, just a normal day." Her eyes drift again, replaying it. "And I remember feeling off. Like I couldn't fully focus." She pauses. "And then there was a moment between takes." Jimmy nods, encouraging her to continue. "And he was there," she says. Jimmy tilts his head. "He." Millie looks up. "Will." The name lands, and the audience reacts instantly, whispers, shifting in their seat. "And I don't even know why," she continues, her voice tightening slightly, "but I just said it." Jimmy leans in. "Said what?" She hesitates. Then, quietly, "So, I guess you're the one with powers now." The audience gasps. A sharp, collective intake of breath. Jimmy's eyes widen. "You didn't." "I did," she cuts in, almost wincing at the memory. "And the second I said it, I knew." "Knew what?" Jimmy asked. "That I messed up." The room goes silent again. "Because the look on his face," she says, her voice dropping, "it wasn't excitement. It wasn't even confusion." She pauses. "It was shock." Jimmy leans back slowly. "He didn't know?" Millie shakes her head. "No," she says. "He didn't." A wave of murmurs spreads through the audience. Jimmy runs a hand through his hair. "Oh wow, okay, so now this isn't just about you finding out something early. This is you revealing it to someone who wasn't supposed to know either." "Exactly," she says. Her expression tightens, the guilt clearly still there. And in that moment, everything just froze. The tension builds again. "No one was talking," she continues. "He just stared at me, like trying to process what I just said." Jimmy watches her carefully. "What did you do?" "I tried to play it off," she says quickly. "I laughed," I said. "Oh, I'm just joking, I saw something online. You know how fans make theories." She shakes her head. "But it didn't work." The audience is completely silent now. "Because you can't unsay something like that," she adds. Jimmy nods slowly. "No, you can't." "And then," she continues, "someone from the crew walked in." Her voice tightens again. "And they knew." Jimmy raises an eyebrow. "They knew what happened?" She nods. "Because the energy shifted instantly," she says. "Like, you know when something goes wrong, and everyone can feel it, even if they didn't hear it?" The audience murmurs in agreement. "It was like that," she says. "And within minutes," she pauses, her jaw tightening slightly, "I was called aside." Jimmy exhales quietly. "By the producers?" She nods again. The tension sharpens. They didn't yell, she says. They didn't make a scene. Her eyes narrow slightly. But somehow that made it worse. Jimmy leans forward, intrigued. What did they say? Millie takes a breath. They just asked me one question, she says. The audience waits. How do you know that? The words hang in the air. Jimmy doesn't speak. No one does. And I just stood there, she continues, trying to come up with something, anything, that didn't make me sound like I had completely crossed a line. She swallows. But there wasn't anything. Jimmy nods slowly. Because the truth was, I wasn't supposed to be there, she finishes. The audience reacts again. Soft gasps, tension building even further. And that's when it hit me, she says. This isn't just a small mistake. Her voice grows heavier. This is a breach. Jimmy exhales. Of trust, he adds quietly. She looks at him and nods. Yeah. The word lands hard. And after that, she continues, everything changed. The audience leans in even closer. How? Jimmy asks. Millie hesitates, but only for a moment. The way people looked at me, she says. The way conversations stopped when I walked into a room. A ripple of discomfort moves through the crowd. It wasn't obvious, she adds quickly. No one said anything directly. Everyone was still nice. She pauses. But it felt different. Jimmy nods slowly. Like there was distance. Exactly, she says. And on top of that, her voice softens slightly. I couldn't stop thinking about him. Jimmy tilts his head. Will. She nods. Because now. I wasn't just dealing with my own feelings about the story, she says. I was dealing with the fact that I had taken something away from him. The guilt is clear now. That moment when you find out something like that for the first time, it's special, she continues. It's shocking, it's exciting, it's yours. She pauses. And I ruined that. The audience is completely still. Jimmy speaks gently. Did he say anything to you after that? Millie looks down, then back up. Yeah, she says quietly. What did he say? Jimmy asked. She takes a breath. He just looked at me and said. She pauses, her voice barely above a whisper. Is that true? The question echoes. And I didn't know what to say, she admits. Because I couldn't lie, but I also couldn't confirm it. Jimmy nods slowly. So what did you do? I said. I don't know, she replies. A few people in the audience shift uncomfortably. And he knew, she adds. He knew I wasn't telling the truth. The tension reaches another peak. And after that, things just weren't the same. Jimmy leans back again, processing everything. This is, he starts then stops. Yeah, she says quietly. It's messy. And as the camera slowly pulls back, capturing the silence, the tension, the weight of everything that's been revealed, one thing becomes clear. This isn't just about a spoiler anymore. It's about consequences, and they're only getting bigger. The silence in the studio feels heavier now than at any point before. It lingers, not awkward, not empty, but full. Full of everything that's been said and everything that hasn't. Jimmy doesn't rush to fill it this time. He just looks at her, really looks at her, as if trying to understand not just the story, but the weight she's been carrying. And after that, he says slowly, carefully choosing each word, did things ever go back to normal? Millie doesn't answer immediately. Her eyes drift for a moment, scanning the audience, the lights, the edges of the stage, like she's searching for something solid to hold onto. No, she says finally. The word is quiet, but it hits the hardest. The audience shifts, absorbing it. Not completely, she adds, her voice steady but softer now. We kept working. We kept filming. Everyone stayed professional, but something had changed. Jimmy nods slowly. That kind of thing doesn't just disappear. No, she says. It doesn't. She leans back slightly, her hands resting in her lap, her posture calmer now, but there's a different kind of intensity in her eyes. Not the sharp tension from before, something deeper. more reflective. You start noticing little things, she continues. Moments that maybe didn't mean anything before, suddenly feel different. The audience listens closely. Like conversations ending when you walk in, she says. Or people choosing their words more carefully around you. Jimmy exhales quietly. That's tough. It is, she admits. Because you don't know if it's real, or if it's just in your head. She pauses. But either way, you feel it. The room is completely still. And then there was the audience, she adds. Jimmy tilts his head. The audience? She nods. Not here, she says, gesturing lightly. I mean out there. She glances toward the camera. Fans. Social media. The internet. A subtle shift moves through the crowd. This is where it leaves the stage and becomes something bigger. Because eventually, things started leaking, she says. Jimmy's eyebrows lift. Wait, like the spoiler? Millie nods slowly. Not all at once, she explains. Just little pieces. Theories, hints, people connecting dots. She pauses, her expression tightening slightly. And then, one day, I saw it. Jimmy leans forward. Saw what? A post, she says. Someone talking about Will having powers. Saying it like it was a fact. A ripple of murmurs spreads through the audience. And the comments, she continues. People arguing, debating, getting emotional, some excited, some angry. She swallows lightly. And all I could think was, this wasn't supposed to happen like this. Jimmy nods slowly. Because it was supposed to be a surprise. Exactly, she says. A moment. A reveal. Her voice softens. Something powerful. She looks down briefly. And instead it felt messy. Leaked. Out of control. The audience sits in silence again. And I couldn't help but wonder, she continues. Jimmy watches her closely. What? If I was the reason it started, she says. The words land with quiet force. Jimmy doesn't interrupt this time. He lets it sit. Even if it wasn't directly, she adds quickly, even if it would have happened anyway, that moment on set it changed things. She exhales slowly. And that's something I had to live with. The room feels heavier again, but not tense anymore. Just real. Jimmy leans forward slightly, his voice softer than it's been all night. Did you ever talk to him about it? Like, really talk about it? Millie nods. Yeah, she says. Eventually. A small shift in the audience. This is what they've been waiting for. And? Jimmy asks gently. She gives a faint smile. He was kind, she says. Relief moves through the room. But honest, she adds. Jimmy nods. What did he say? Millie takes a breath. He said, I wish I found out another way. The sentence lands softly, but deeply. And he was right, she continues. He deserved that moment. She pauses. But he also said, it's okay. We'll make it work. A quiet warmth spreads through the audience. Jimmy smiles slightly. That's a good friend. Yeah, she says, her voice lighter now. He is. There's a small pause, but this one feels different. Less heavy. More resolve. But it still taught me something, she continues. Jimmy tilts his head. What's that? That even in something as big as a show, as successful as this, she says, the smallest moments can have the biggest impact. She looks out toward the audience again. One sentence, she adds. One mistake. One moment you wish you could take back. Silence. But you can't, she says. Jimmy nods slowly. No, he agrees. You can't. And that's the hard part, she continues. Learning to move forward anyway. The audience begins to clap softly. This time not out of excitement, but appreciation. The energy has shifted again. From tension to understanding. Jimmy glances at the camera, then back at her. Well, he says with a small, respectful smile, I think people are going to see this interview very differently now. A few quiet laughs ripple through the crowd. Yeah, she says, smiling faintly. Probably. The applause grows a little louder now, filling the studio, But it doesn't drown out the feeling that something real just happened here. Something unfiltered. Something human. As the camera slowly pulls back, capturing the stage, the audience, the glow of the lights, you can almost feel the ripple effect already beginning. Clips of this moment spreading online. Fans dissecting every word. Headlines twisting the narrative. Some people sympathizing. Some criticizing. Some turning it into something bigger than it ever was. Because that's what happens. In a world where every moment is watched, every word matters. And sometimes, the story behind the story becomes the real headline. The screen fades slightly, the music begins to rise. And now it's your turn. What do you think? Was it just an honest mistake, or did it cross a line that shouldn't have been crossed? Drop your opinion in the comments right now. I want to hear your perspective on this. And if you want more intense, cinematic stories that take you behind the scenes of moments like this, make sure you subscribe to The Truth Narrator. Because the next story? It might be even more shocking.